Hey, can someone get me a warm pan? It's getting cold in here.
I got it.
Wow, did you just smuggle a baby in a warming pan? How did that ever fit in there? Alright, that's it.
Alright.
So, no, a baby cannot fit in a pan. That's the name of our presentation.
So yeah, we got English Protestants looking at a warming pan and asking if this is an illegitimate child stuck into birthing chamber as a massive Catholic conspiracy to take the English throne. It's a little much.
The basics. So, James Francis Edward Stuart was born on the 10th of June, 1688. English Protestants feared that there is now a possibility for an extended period of Catholic rule in England. A midwife's testimony about the contents of a warming pan being brought into the birthing chamber is the crux of a conspiracy theory. To explain the skit a little bit, it was basically a midwife bringing in a baby in a warming pan, and as you see, a baby cannot fit in a pan, and it doesn't even look like a baby can fit in a pan, and so that's the basis.
Yeah, and the warming pans were smaller than your like modern cooking pans. They're like little things. They're supposed to hold a little bit of like coal that you shove under the bed. They're like small.
So, Catholicism versus Church of England. Why does this scandal matter so much religiously?
Oh yeah, so religion in England. So like aside from the reign of Bloody Mary, England had remained Protestant since Henry VIII separated from the Catholic Church to form his own Church of England in 1534, and we're like in 1688, 1689, so it's been like a good like 100 years or so of like being Protestant here, so they're all like, yeah, we're Protestant, but then James II converts to Catholicism, he marries a Catholic, and they're all like, excuse me, we were Protestant, what are you doing? So, while the Church of England was technically Protestant, theologically it was like really like Catholicism light, if you want to think of it that way. Very similar in terms of sacraments and other things. So,
The basic definition of Catholicism and Protestant that the two branches of Christianity. In Catholicism, the Pope is the head of the Church. The head location is the Vatican City in Rome. The doctrine follows both the scripture and tradition, and salvation comes from both faith and good works. Very similar, Protestantism, there's no head of the church, there's no head location, sola scriptura, beliefs come from the Bible alone, and salvation comes from faith alone. Besides these main differences, they're pretty identical.
and then for the Church of England, it's a lot more similar to Catholicism than your mainline Protestantism. So your head of the church is the English monarch, and the church is based in England, and they have some prayer books in addition to the Bible, but a lot of the major theological concepts are like nearly identical. So like, they're making a really big fuss about religion, but like, there wasn't much there.
When you come to the facts, like, it's not that big of a difference.
Yeah, so some differences are mainly the authority figures in the church. So for Catholicism, it's the Pope, the Bishop in Rome. And for Catholicism, like, it's sort of like top down, so your Pope is like your biggest authority, and then it kind of like goes down in like a pyramid sort of thing. Whereas the Church of England, the central authority is going to be like your reigning British monarch, known as the supreme governor of the church. But their authority is kind of more like everyone's holding their own local authority. It's more decentralized, I guess. So it's a lot less top down and more like bottom up almost. But similarities, so both churches practice the same 7 sacraments, and both churches advocate for tradition to play a role in theology rather than just relying on the Bible. Because that's the main difference of like Martin Luther Protestantism versus Catholicism, is like very Bible focused rather than tradition focused. But the Church of England has their own prayer books and theological documents in addition to the Bible that they also use as the basis of their theology, which is much more similar to Catholicism than other Protestant denominations.
Here's a quick graphic so you can see how early Christianity branches out into all these sub-religions. But if you follow the Great Schism and then the Reformation with Martin Luther's 99 Theses, you can see it branches into Protestantism. So Protestantism versus modern day Roman Catholicism, but you can see how actually similar they are and how they come from basically the same origins.
Okay, so as we discussed the politics, you'll kind of see that the warming pan scandal wasn't really about the baby. So in James II's the baby kind of meant there would be a continuation in the absolutist state, kind of like Louis XIV of France. But then William of Orange and the Whigs' vision, it kind of meant a participatory or a political society founded on freedom of speech, information, and a whole lot of good stuff like that.
The thing is, does this truly affect what happened with the warming pan? Like, we can introduce all about the politics, all about the religion, Protestantism versus Catholicism, but at the end of the day, was a baby snuck in or not? It's a very much a yes or no question, but we can't really answer because it was a long time ago.
Okay, so what was the political situation like at the time? So 6 months after the Prince of Wales' birth, William of Orange invaded England. They weren't really supposed to do this. They were kind of acting outside like their authority, but the possibility of an illegitimate child kind of maybe made it okay. And then the supposed illegitimacy of the baby gave William the excuse to press his wife Mary's claim to the throne of England as well.
So basically, they're sort of using the warming pan scandal as like a cover for their attempt to have a coup, because they don't like James II, they don't like his religion. But now, and they were hoping he was just going to die and it was going to go to his daughter Mary, who was Protestant, and everything was going to go back to normal. But now they have this baby who's going to inherit because he's a boy, so he's going to take precedence. And they're like, well, this is an issue. So they just sort of came up with a story to like justify their invasion of England, because otherwise it would be like, you can't just invade England because you don't like the king. That goes against the divine right. But if you're saying that the king is breaking divine right, it's okay now, basically. So we got William of Orange invading England versus celebrating the birth of his Prince of Wales and his brother-in-law.
Okay, so what was the Glorious Revolution? William of Orange pretty much agreed to expand the rights of Parliament if he said James II's flight to France was an abdication, which pretty much meant like that he resigned, which he didn't. Then the Bill of Rights of 1689 became English law. That did a whole bunch of good stuff for Protestants and a whole bunch of bad stuff for Catholics, as you can see here.
So anti-Catholicism in England. The main reason for this was the Popish plot. This was a supposed plot by the Jesuits, with the blessing of the Pope, to murder the King, Charles II. And so this was done to put his Catholic brother and heir, James, who was the Duke of York, on the throne. And this re-established Catholicism in England, and a large population, they also believed in the Popish plot. So the anti-Catholic fears were based on complete irrational hysteria, as the Catholic community in England was small and peaceful, and at the same time the Protestant religion was in obvious danger. So let's come to something that Aristotle believed in. A false syllogism draws the wrong conclusion from two given premises. An example of this is
People who have just run a marathon sweat profusely.
Premise 2, you are sweating profusely.
So that means you have just run a marathon.
Or maybe you just want it.
So let's go back to what matters. Was the baby snuck in or not? Fire was carried into the Queen's room in a warming pan. A baby can fit in a warming pan, and therefore the baby was snuck into the room using a warming pan. So is the syllogism enough evidence to believe beyond a reasonable doubt that a baby was smuggled into Mary of Medina's birthing chamber?
In conclusion, no. The warming pan scandal was a fictitious story meant to discredit Catholic monarch in order to put a Protestant on the English throne.
So going off of the logic bit here, it's like the burden of proof is on the person making a claim. So like if you're claiming that something happened, you have to have evidence that that happened, not that there is an absence of evidence that it didn't happen. So like right now, if I said there's a unicorn in this room, and you're like, there isn't one, I can't see one. Well, I can just say the unicorn's invisible. We could go on and on just doing this forever, forever basically, right? Like everything you say, I could just come up with something else to make it not true. That's why you need to prove, if you're going to make a claim, you need to have evidence to assert that that actually exists, rather than an absence of evidence asserting it doesn't exist, essentially. And we have a Kahoot, so thanks. We're going classic, right?
Yeah.
Do we have sound here? Do we have the Kahoot music right now? Oh, we have sound.
Oh, it's so loud.
It's really loud. It's alright. It's in the background now. Okay. We got some creative nicknames here. I think I still look at the typing story.
There's more than 7 of you in here. Come on.
Yeah, there's also that there's like a good more than 7 of you in here. More than 8 of you. Like it's a low net. We're getting some creative names in here. Is that everyone? Or anyone still entering in there?
1 second.
Alright. We've got at least 3 people.
I just wanted to think back to like 2 years ago. And did you really think your computer names
Who
would
is
be
playing
candidate for
with me?
jail? Candidate.
We've got at least 2 people playing as Dr. Hoffman, and then we've got 1 Dr. Hoffman in this class, so.
That's good.
Alright, we can see the members of the opposing group.
There may be a right answer. Just saying.
Fake news.
Nice. Alright, solid.
We got the canning teams still feeding.
Wait a second. Appreciate it in all its glory.
Public medical examination, like not just like you and your doctor, like you and like the country military.
Yeah, times were different back then. It wasn't common for royalty to get medical examination, but now you definitely should if you're pregnant.
We're missing an answer. Someone disconnected. We're in the basement. There's one we got.
Solid. So that's like a good. Glad y'all
Who is
played.
KH?
I don't know if that's the prize I would want to play.
I'm just gonna log out of
Does
mine.
anyone have any questions?
Yeah, questions. Anyone? Should I log out of my Google Drive on here in my account? Because I logged in as me.
Yes, because we're gonna log in through Google.
Yeah, that's what I figured. And then should I sign into the computer, Dr. Hoffman? Or,
No, you don't have to.
alright. Sorry.
Oh, it's